Hi, this is Jim, and this is Second Chance, a moped podcast. And welcome everybody to another week of Second Chance Moped Podcast. As many of you maybe saw on the Instagram, I invaded a scooter rally, and it was rad. It was I like being unknown. I like being the fly on the wall. Some people will say I'm a lurker, or I like to observe things and just kind of see how people treat me. Because I always try to treat people with a smile and a handshake, and like just being in different, not cultures per se, but just a different like sect of the two-wheel journey. And I found out about this thing. It was called the Land of 10,000 Scooter Rally. It was supposed, anyways, but like it was funny because like I got that Vespa C. Jesus Christ, almost did it again. I got that Vespa Chow going finally, and like I maybe had 10 miles on. I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna ride 20 miles over to Minneapolis and just go on the 49cc or less ride. And I got it there, and I think one of my seals are going on that thing now because like I'm pretty sure everything's all original on that because like it just started dying on me and I had to choke it out and ended up leaving the Friday ride. But Saturday was very interesting. I got to the meetup point. Oh, actually, it was so ironic because that was my first scooter rally ever within a quarter mile of where I was at my very first moped rally, the Casserolers in 2018, I think it was. So I just found we're pretty close to where Shane Johnson's old warehouses were. I thought that was funny, but I learned something about scooter people. They like their rules. They like the rules, and they will let you know. And they check, like, I'm surprised moped people, I don't think you can enforce this in moped world, but like you had to have wristbands to be there. And like they were ready to kick people out if they didn't have their wristband to go on the ride. And like I was the only moped there, and I just thought it was funny. And like a few people I kind of recognized from here and there, and but those people liked to ride slow. I don't think we broke over 30 the entire Saturday afternoon. I did get to meet some people who knew of me. Some people on one of my test roads are like, do you have other yellow scooters like that? I'm like, it's a moped, but yes. They're like, are they generally always loud like that one? I go, it's a moped, so yes. And they go, our little kid loves you. You're the yellow scooter guy, she calls all the time. So some little kid somewhere likes my loud bikes, which made me very happy. And like it was a couple, and we did the whole Instagram number exchange, which was great. One of the people registering, I like, she asked me why my voice sounded familiar. I said I had a podcast. She goes, I said Second Chance, and I don't think she heard the second part. She said, Chance, do you know a mopeder named Chance? I'm like, I know of a mopeder named Chance from the Hell Satans. Like I've never met Chance. And she's like, yeah. And like her, like, I think she's old school moped lady. I'll have to inquire about that some more, but like, it was all really rad. Very friendly people, very straight laced. Kind of opposite of a moped rally where people cut loose, get rowdy, and it's scooter people, dude. What can I say? But that was pretty awesome to meet another side of the two-wheeled world in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And then a lot of moped people came to the end point, and we all assimilated and chit chat with a bunch of people, and we did about the most punk rock thing you could do, leaving a scooter rally. Unknowing to us, we left going down a one-way. And did we come back? No, we just kind of cut through and finally started going on the right way of traffic, which I thought was hilarious. So everybody knows I had to take a break. I just had to hit the decompression. And like I was just talking to my guest a little bit. Like he told me a few episodes he'd listened to, and like when I first started this podcast, like I honestly went around and asked, like, because I had the fear that what was going to happen to this podcast is what was going to happen with Brapcast was nobody was going to say yes. So I went around and asking tons of people, And I forgot some of the people I asked. So if I ever asked you to be on this, please get back to me. One of those, it doesn't matter, but like this individual has style. And like it was shit I saw he was doing in his non-mopeding life that I just fucking dug. And I asked him, and like I think I just not blown off, forgot to get back because he said yes, and it was awesome. And this is a part of the country that I need to explore more when it comes to mopeders. But I am going to ask this week's guest. Pause. We almost screwed up again, kids. Before we get going, gotta get my coffee sip in. I'm gonna ask this week's guest to introduce himself.
I'm Brad Hale. I'm from Ypsilanti, Michigan. I'm a founding member of the No-Nos.
Right on. See, that makes me so happy because I thought you said something else, and I was like, "What the fuck group was that?" Like, I don't know why I did that. This is fucking rad. This makes me so happy.
The weird city throw you off?
No, it was like the FUs or something like that. I thought you said.
Well, I mean, no, it's the real name is NSTNFG, which is no shit taken, no fucks given.
Okay, that's what you gave me, and that's like, because I had never heard that. Like, because I'll be the first one to admit, dude, like, I love mopeds, and I love the people in mopeds, and I'm still learning about all the non-official Grom clubs out there. And like, dude, Wendy is fucking a rock star in my book. Same with your girl Brooke, who is I just got a t-shirt. I bought a t-shirt from her today.
Oh, you got one of the Summon mopeds on?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah,
she made a lot of cool designs for us. There was one that had like a raccoon with like beers in both hands and like wearing some cuts and like, you know, like dancing like they're in a pit at a punk show.
That makes me so happy. So Brad, here on Second Chance Moped Podcast, we go through people's moped journeys. What happened, i.e., the very first time they saw a moped, not necessarily getting on, but the first time they conceptually remember that's a moped, to like, you know, your middle part progression through your middle part of your journey and what it's like today. So Brad, let me ask you, what is your very first memory of a moped? Not necessarily getting on, but the first time you remember understanding that is a moped.
Oh boy, the very first, there was this coffee shop I hung out with in downtown Plymouth, Michigan, and we were just sitting there with a few friends, and we saw like it was like, I think it might have been the Guns or Novi Left, like way back. Oh shit, probably like 03, 04 or something. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting out there and we were going by. This before I had any idea, you know, and just kind of like, what the hell are these guys riding these around for? You know, at the time I had no inkling of, I was like, well, that's kind of stupid, you know, and, you know, yes, it is, but that's exactly why it's great. Mopeds are incredibly stupid, but at the time that was all it amounted to for me. And, you know, it's, yeah, it's just, yeah, my initial impression, like, I still technically think fat, but I also love them.
Right on. So that was your first impression. Was that your first? When was your first time getting on a moped then?
My friend Jonathan, who was my bandmate's roommate, he had what was it? It was the early 80s Tomos. He had a golden bullet. And I ripped it up and down the street a few times, and I was like, oh, okay, this is awesome. Like, he lived in an apartment complex, and he would like drag it up his stairs and like put it in his closet, and his roommates kept yelling at him because the whole apartment smelled like gas. But riding his was like the one I ever rode.
Dude, I give such props to people having mopeds in apartments. Like, I don't think I would have had the stones. I know I didn't have the stones to do that because I never had one in an apartment. Yeah, dude, that's fucking rad. So you got on that golden bullet. Was it just bone stock and tuned, or was it poorly tuned?
At the time, it was bone stock. That was before any of us knew anything. We later kitted his bike. We put a Pook like small CC. I think we put a 60cc Athena piston port on it. And we didn't know anything about gearing at that time. It's just still pretty early on. So the second we fired that damn thing up with the Athena on it, it was just instant wheelie machine because it was an A3. And it's literally like fired it up and it just bucks you right off of it, but you're still holding the hands and the thing goes vertical and you're just kind of running after it down the street. You know?
That shit is awesome.
That was when we learned about gearing.
Yeah. And then you learn about the A3 first gear and how great they are because I see they shred.
The only Tomos motor I'll mess with.
Really? The A3?
They're beefier. Yeah, they're made of harder stuff, man. You got a little more torque, so you could gear them a little higher and carry that torque out.
That's interesting. Like, I know nothing about Tomoses. It's just something I've just never even owned a Tomos.
I'm not adapt to them either. I don't think I've ever had one of my own, but I've helped a lot of people with theirs.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm familiar enough with them, but I've never had one to call my own, really.
Well, then let's talk about your very first moped. How'd you go about it? What'd you do to get it? What was it?
Before I actually got my own moped, I knew two people that had scooters that were just like twist and go scooters, just little Chinese ones, you know.
Tao, whatever.
On, and I rode that around, and I was pretty quick to learn riding, you know. And then an old bandmate of mine, he had a 150cc scooter that was really cool. And I was visiting him. He was actually living in a motel in Wayne at the time. And he's like, oh, pawn shop down the street, they have this BMW moped. I'm like, huh? What? BMW? Like, I bet that might be Pook. And, you know, I go down there and it's a 77 Maxi Sport. And I wasn't quite sure if that was what I should be looking for at the time. And I call my buddy Chris, who had been trying for years to get me into mopeds. He'd be like, Brad, you should get a moped. It's freaking cool, man. He kept telling me for years and years, and I was a little late to the party, you know. And this is about 2009, I want to say. And I just got paid that day too, and
of course,
I'm at this farm, and there was like the guy who ran the place, and then there was his like grease monkey dude who was like trying to fix it up here, and he could not get the damn thing to start. And I was like, well, what do you want for it as is? And he's like, $250. I was like, all right, cool. Yeah, I just got paid. Here you go. I took it and, you know, tried forever to get it running on my own. And eventually ended up meeting people off of Moped Army. And I met Rodney, who ended up being one of the original members of MCR. And he helped me get that going. It just had a bad solder on the condenser. And then it was off and going, rocking steady 30 all day.
Nice. So we'll just pause here for a second. Like, what's your background at this point when it comes to mechanics or anything like that? Because that's another thing I find interesting. Like, some people come in, yes, I was an ex so-and-so, and like I framed houses, and like I'm a ASE certified mechanic. And some people like, my parent was an English teacher, and you know what I'm saying, like the backgrounds that we come in with. Like, what was your background or like growing up like?
Well, I'm from a second generation Ford household. Like, my dad worked for Ford, his dad worked for Ford, and my great grandpa owned a Harley shop down in Stone, Kentucky, on like the West Virginia border. Actually married a Hatfield, so the Hatfields and McCoys is part of my family history.
Dude, after the podcast, I'll have to tell you some of my old school family history. Like, people like I always feel like I'm repeating myself and interrupting people, but like, yeah, dude, it was like, yeah, we always thought my grandpa was crazy, but I do have roots to the Mayflower, so it's fucking nuts, dude.
Well, anyway, as far as like mechanical stuff goes, you know, I took auto tech class when I was in senior year of high school, and that was basically a 3-hour block that was half the day. So like, we were in the class for an hour, and then we were out in the shop for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we'd like mess around with each other's cars, do stupid stuff. Like, we put one of those beeping backup alarms on like my '84 Mercury Grand Marquis I had at the time. Just goofy little stuff like that every once in a while. Sometimes we do more major stuff. But before even that, my very first car, my dad gave me his old 78 Ford F-250 Custom, and
Nice.
it had it was bright red, had the Highboy package, so it was 4-wheel drive lifted, had 33-inch Cooper tires on chrome slotted wheels, and a big white topper, KC lights on the roof. It was ridiculous. It looked redneck as hell, but
yeah, I was gonna say blue collar as fuck, but yeah.
But he gives me this old Ford, and it's a 78 Ford with the worst engine possible. But he gives it to me, and it basically got the same speech when a little kid is like, "Oh, I want to get a puppy," and it's like, "Well, it's a lot of responsibility, you gotta feed it water, And I basically got the same speech, except with the car, you gotta, this is your car now. You gotta take care of it. You gotta maintain it. You gotta fix it when it breaks. And you got, this, that, and the other. And
dude, you're a 16-year-old kid looking at wheels. You want to get drunk and get laid, dude. You're not listening to anything.
Well, I mean, that thing broke all the time. So I got a lot of practice because my first car was a 78 Ford pickup.
What motor did it have in it? You said it had the worst one.
It had the 351 modified.
Oh, okay.
And it is a cousin to, it's part of the 351 Cleveland family, which includes the 351 Cleveland and the 400.
Yeah.
Either of those are really good engines, but basically what they did with the 351M is it's basically a de-stroked 400.
Okay, yeah, okay. I've heard of the 351M. I've never heard it referred to as modified. I don't know why, but yeah.
Yeah, it blew ignition modules left and right, and we eventually figured out it kept doing that because it needed a distributor.
I was gonna say those had electrical problems because I come from a family that owned a body shop. I come from a Ford family, but I'm a Chevy guy. But yeah, well, I want something reliable that works. So, but I remember that tow truck, it'd always blow distributors all the time. And it had that 351M.
Yeah, just the worst motor ever.
But anyways, we'll get back. So you come from a mechanical family, a huge mechanical background. So you know how to turn a wrench. You get that maxi, even though you know how to turn a wrench, you still don't know what you're doing, but you got some good people around you to help. What was that like once you finally got it going? When was your first real smile right on that bike is what I'm wondering. Oh, and what year is this? What year is this? Because I'm kind of a weird stickler for.
This was this is 2009, I want to say.
Okay.
It was when I still had a maintenance gig with U-Haul, and I got that going. I ended up, going out to Rodney's place out in Royal Oak, and this is before the no-nos, before MCR. I was. In the early stages, I was meeting the people and riding with them that eventually became NCR. So it was a good few years in there where, I didn't have any group affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
And, Rodney would host these rides out from his house, and, we'd go 60 miles sometimes. But he, I think my big time moped smile, mine was fun and everything. I had it stock for a good few months before I, was like, all right, I'm going to get a kid. I'm going to get a puck. I'm going to get a car. I'm going to get all this,
Mm-hmm.
And before I did that, I rode Rodney's kitted Pinto he had. It was just a K-Star 16 shot, and he had a really cool Leo Vinci pipe on it. But that thing would hit 50 all day, and it was just the most fun. I was like, this thing feels like it's going to fall apart, but this is so cool.
Yeah.
I think just testing the limits of these old machines is half the thrill.
Well, the thing I think I'm starting to understand more and more, everybody would kit their bikes back in the day, but nobody did a lot of work on the suspension per se. They're still running on the old shocks, the old forks and everything like that. So they probably felt like they were going 75. So you got your bike going, you got you rode that Pinto, you kind of got the joy or sensation of speed. Like, did you start the hoarder bug? Like so many of us can do when it comes to mopeds. Like, I need to get another one. I need to get another one. Or what? Like, and what's the price point at them right now in your area? Because I realized you guys were, especially in '09, it was kind of a mecca for like the moped scene.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what the price is going for these days because like so many people just snatch them up right away. And
Well, I just mean like
really
back then, back in like '09 to '10, whatever.
It depended what you got. I mean, one of my bikes that I built into a Ripper, I got it like for $100, but it was like, just a roller that didn't run at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But back then you could get a runner for like $400.
Okay. So,
and that would be fair.
Yeah. So kind of stayed relative to what it is now. I mean, it seems like the last 6 months to a year, things have kind of gotten crazy, but whatever. What is the, like, out in the wild, what's the prominent bike that you're generally always going to find around, at least back then, around Michigan? Was it just like Pook Central or?
Oh, 9 times out of 10, you're finding a Pook. It's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
It's more often than not a Pook. One thing I did notice, I got on the west side of the state in Grand Rapids, like, they just got hobbits. Like, they're just never going to run out. Like, there's just hobbit after hobbit after hobbit out that way. And on this side of the state, you got more like Pook and Tomos.
Okay.
And you got Italian bikes here and there. The Italian ones crop up pretty frequently, too.
Yeah. Like, maybe it's because I'm kind of known as a hobbit guy, but like that's all I see out in the wild, and a few Pooks, and usually, I don't care to buy bikes right now. I'm trying to liquidate more so I can probably buy more. You talked about a little bit of riding with a group. Like, how was it? How did you like? I'm trying to segue into a better way to ask this, but I'm brain farting right now. Like, had you been in any other clubs before, or like what was the formula no-nos, or like want to talk about like kind of your progression in the scene?
Well, the no-nos started out basically like I'd bring my buddy Chris along and he'd ride like one of my other bikes. So at the time I had multiple runners like a couple years in,
Mm-hmm.
I never really got serious on the hoarding things, but my buddy Chris would come out and ride with me on Rodney's rides and stuff because he lived close by. He lived way closer to Rodney than me, so I'd bring a second bike and he'd ride that. And one day he just wrote that "no shit taken, no fucks given" on the back of his vest in Sharpie, and I was like, "Hey, I like that,"
Mm-hmm.
And this was a good few years before we ever, really started the no-nos proper. But it just originally started out with me and my buddy Chris, and that was just the slogan we liked. And it's like the no-nos like didn't really start till it kind of kicked into high gear when I met Andy Struther, and I was running a garage spot out of my buddy Maddie's place, and because my early years in Ipsy, I had like the cheapest apartment I could get, and then I'd rent a garage space, and then I'd also have like a rehearsal space where my band would practice. So I was moving stuff all the time, so I couldn't really have that many bikes reasonably.
Yep. Well, what's not that many bikes to you?
Oh,
because everybody's got a different variant of that.
Are we counting bikes in parts?
We'll just say bikes that you physically have to move.
Bikes you physically have to move. There's about, not all of them are mine, but in my shed we've got about 7 or 8 bikes in there. That's
a healthy amount. That's not
and then it's top here. Right now my phone's leaning against one of mine on my workbench. Then I got like my main runners showing in here, my Hobbit. And there's a couple rollers kicking around in here.
I gotta ask, what's your Hobbit setup?
CR Proma VM18.
Yeah.
Notch Berry. Euro rear.
Okay. Yeah. I was never good at notching variators, so like I just bought, aftermarket stuff all the time. Yeah, that's a combo that'll always get you 45 to 50.
Yeah, and that's like all I really care to do anymore.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of going back there. But like you really haven't necessarily got you talked about the early iteration of the no-nos. Like, are you hitting any rallies, or are the barbecues a thing at this point, or like what's your kind of contact with the outside world?
I haven't been able to do a whole lot of moped stuff this year. And
I mean, like we're still like back around 2009, 2010, 12. Like, are you starting to get out?
What? Okay. Yeah. Well, back then, still just kind of dipping a toe with it. And there was like one of the last like bigger guns rallies I went to. And that's where I met Twitch and Brad Potts, who would later be MCR people.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit it up with them instantly. We were all broke down. And at the time, the guns were renting this, their clubhouse space was like in this office space by the airport in Ann Arbor. And it was so interesting that was their spot, because it was not like a garage. It was just like this big like office building. And we were all trying to work out what was going on with our bikes. And this was when I like not long after I just got like my first top tank build, like one-off top tank build running. And it was like backfiring, and turns out like the setup I had just did not like this foam air filter I had. And then as soon as we got going again and we took off, my bike started backfiring again. It backfired so hard that it blew that foam filter apart. And then it was fine. It was fine the rest of the time. I was like, all right, I guess like that.
Was that a curse of the VM20?
No, that was a PHBG. That was my first time running a PHBG. And weird homemade intake made out of a piece of handlebar.
Oh yeah, those are always fun. What? So you hit one of the guns rallies. Like, what's the farthest you've been out? Just in your overall career of mopeds, how far have you traveled to go to a rally?
I went to New Orleans twice.
What's that? What's
I have a Chevy van down there? Blew up the radiator on the way down. And the next time we took it, it took like a day and a half to get back because it kept tossing the alternator belt, and I kept getting out and fixing it. But yeah, moped.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. What's one of your more fun rallies you've been to?
That is in New Orleans?
That is that you can talk about.
I mean, my first big one always really stands out to me. That was 2010 or 11. I think it was 2011. We went out to Milwaukee for the Cranks rally, and we rode from Milwaukee to Chicago and then did the Chicago rally. So that was like I think that was a bit longer than your usual 3-day weekend. I think it was like a 4 or 5 day thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to ride, my bike, and I had my van and trailer, and my buddy Chris was with me, and so was Ben Cranky, who's also like an early MCR guy. We all rode in my van and used like my dad's ATV trailer to pull our mopeds.
Nice.
And yeah, that was a good one. But we had to find someone to drive my van because none of us wanted to drive. We all wanted to ride into Chicago.
Hell yeah.
So this dude I'd like just met, like maybe had a beer with him the night before. Like he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll drive your van." And I was like, "All right, whatever." Just to my van. He drove my van and trailer, and played chase for the ride. And I nearly made it the whole way into Chicago too. And I lost the top nut off of my my fork triple tree.
Ooh.
And then I hit a good few Chicago. I was like, come on, we can make it. We can make it. We're almost here. A few blocks away. I noticed the nuts gone, and we're hitting all these giant Chicago potholes. And then we come to a stop, and I hit the brakes, and the forks just like tilt forward because the plate had completely come off the tube.
Oh.
So I bent them back in the hot and ready shop, and I realized the curvature of the EBR forks like ran into my my top race, so I had to like grind it out so it would actually not catch on it and let me tighten it down all the way.
Right on. Now, is that in the old day of the castle that is so famous?
That was really cool spot.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you something else, and I totally blanked it out. So you talked about a little bit of the early conception. What made you decide to form the No-Nos? Had not to talk, I mean, we don't need to pick up old wounds or anything like that or talk smack, but like, had you done anything, like thought about joining any other moped cliques at that point? Or
well, there were
because I know Michigan there's like 500 clubs.
MCR was starting up around then, and I'd hung out with the Zeros too, and there were a few other groups I'd been around, but people kept several groups had asked me if I wanted to prospect for them, and I just came to this point where I was like, the guns were kind of on their way out as soon as I was getting into it. So I was like, they were the closest to my locale, like Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti are like sister cities, and I was like, there isn't really a group around here, so like I appreciate it, but I'll pass because I just thought if I was going to join a gang, I'd rather start one than just join one. And that's kind of how it came to be. Like, it didn't really start to get to be a bigger group until, like I was saying earlier, I was renting my buddy Maddie's garage, and Andrew Struther and I met because his roommate mixed up me and my friend Jim, who I used to just hang out with and rent on mopeds back in the day. And Joe got us mixed up, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you should hit up Brad Hale." And me and Jim both rented up on mopeds anyway at the time, so it wasn't really that big of a mix up. But he's like, "Yeah, my roommate Andy's got like all these mopeds in the basement." He had like a bunch of Marinis and Minarellis. So we ended up meeting up, and we're like, "Yeah, let's get some of these going or see if we can part them out or whatever the hell." And we started hanging out and messing with these all the time, and we started just trying to get more people around. We'd like put flyers up to see if people would want to meet up, take an interest in it. We tried to like round up other moped people in the area, and slowly, little by little, it started to grow. And that was around 2011,
right on.
And I think it 2013 we had the first No-Nos rally. So the group grew pretty quickly. Once Andy was in the fold.
Okay, well, I was gonna ask you, what was that first rally planning like for you?
Absolute chaos. We didn't even really have a route. We've always had it at our friend Nina's sister and brother-in-law's place, which is not far from Ypsilanti. It's about 8 miles south of town, but it's like out in the sticks, like it's like farmland. And big backyard, just like plenty of room to stuff vehicles and tents back there. And it was great. And they had a big burn pile because her brother-in-law does like commercial lawn maintenance, so they get like just tons of brush and stuff back there and just put it all back there, and we just burn it every year for the rally. But yeah, the first one was crazy. Like, we provided everyone that came to the first rally. We called it the dumpster. At the time, me and Andy were roommates and both shared a garage space, and I was still back into doing scrap metal. We just go around on garbage night and we would just get all sorts of crap. Like, we'd go around and trash pick, find scrap metal. because we were just two broke ass dudes. And one day I'm like on my way home from work, and Andy's like, dude, you got to come down Ballard Street. Like, meet me over here on Ballard. And I'm like, oh, okay, dude. And there's this house that someone got evicted from, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like 3 trash cans full of this homemade wine. And it's all dated. Damn it. It's all dated, like, you know, between like 5 to 10 years old, all of it. And they were all different. For like white wines, there were a few rosés. Those are the only ones that were actually tasty. But like, it was basically vinegar with the strength of brandy.
I was gonna say it's fucking moonshine with a hint of taste of some.
Oh, yeah. That shit. Everyone got one, and we still had some to spare. Everyone who came got one with admission. Some people got so drunk, like Dave B from the Decons got so trash off that stuff, he missed the ride the next day completely.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, I mean, that stuff was just next level. That stuff just got everyone so blasted.
It had time to cure.
Yeah, I mean, and then, you know, that Saturday we go on the first ride, and we hadn't really, like, we had like a loose idea. Like, we looked over the map of the area, and it's like, you know, we get to the first stop once we're off the dirt road that the property was on. It's like, all right, well, what do we do? Like, I don't know, go right. Just kind of winged it from there, really.
Yeah. Well, I've been to rallies like that, like Moped Spring Break. That was kind of a wing it kind of deal. Like, Amanda did such a great job, except for the last like 4 miles of planning that route. She didn't realize we were going on the highway. That was fun. So at what point did you talked about like no-nos were around for a couple years? Like, how many people were actually in the no-nos when you decided to throw a rally, and what even made you want to throw a rally? Was it just kind of other groups kind of pressuring you to do it and you said fuck it, or
we just kind of wanted to do one because we thought we could do a good job of it. We thought we could, you know, make it fun for everyone more than anything. That was kind of our main thing, is we just want people to have a good time. It was crazy because a lot of people we'd never met showed up from way out of state, and there are people that came back every year, and we've all been good friends with since.
Nice. I'm kind of bummed out. I had way too many issues with my bike. I was gonna come to your last one, but just shit happened. I wasn't able to make it. Hopefully you guys have one here in the next year or so.
We're hoping to in 2022.
Yeah. What is some you can have fun with this, and you already talked about one thing, like not having a route for a rally. What's some of the dumber things you've done in mopeds? Dumb funny, dumb cool, or just I can't believe I did that?
Oh, definitely going on that death trap velodrome in Detroit.
Why don't you explain I've seen pictures of it, but why don't you explain that to people who don't know what it is?
It's an embanked track. So it's in Detroit at, like, I think it's Mound and Outer Drive, I want to say. But anyway, there's this group in Detroit called the Mower Gang. They would go around and mow public areas that no longer had funding to be mowed. And they were just out there mowing this park, and then they find this velodrome. And they're like, oh my God, this is a freaking racetrack. You know, it was made for bicycle racing initially. But, you know, you could kind of get away with putting mopeds on it. But, you know, there's between turn 3 and 4 on it, there was this part that had separated, like 2 of these slabs had like cracked and separated. And there was this big, like 3 to 4 inch difference in them. And someone tried to like kind of bevel it with some blacktop patch, and it was in the lower part of the bowl. So you had the high side between that one part. Otherwise, you bottom out your suspension. So I'm in a race there one year, and it wasn't like there were some official races there, but I went to one that was hosted by the local mini bike group, and there were guys on scooters and minis. They had like different heats going on, and I was doing pretty good on this Pinot build I just done. And my my chain tension changed between heats, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And then I adjusted it and did my next heat. And that part where I was talking about you have the high side, I'm like gunning it full throttle, and I'm like going to take this high side of the ramp, and I'm trying to steer left back into the bowl. For some reason, I just get slingshot right out of that track.
Oh, no.
And they've been saying all day for people to move their cars because they were parking right next to the track. And
I've heard of this story.
Yeah,
I just heard. Oh, God, dude. No.
There was really sweet, like, Chevy Bel Air, like painted Chevy orange and shit. And I'd like come out of the bowl. I'm looking straight at it. I was like, oh, man, I'm going to smash that sweet car, you know? And I tried to steer past it, and ended up hitting the thing on the tail fin, and my entire left side got beat up as hell. I fractured a bone in my arm.
Yeah.
Didn't need surgery, but I had like several big bruises, like by my hip and like on my chin. And,
oh, that's a bummer, dude.
And I cut my chin wide open. Even with the beard and everything, I needed like 2 internal stitches and like 5 external stitches. Like, you can see my salivary glands when I talk. Yeah, and they cut a big patch out of my beard, and then it cut my beard off. This was like fall 2013.
Yeah.
But, you know, I was, I couldn't work, couldn't play guitar for like 3 months because I was in a cast. And everyone in the group put on this fundraiser for me, and that helped me keep the bills paid until I was able to, you know, get back to work and all that.
Yeah, my guy. That's fucking rad. That, you know, it's amazing with the moped community. And I just like, I'm sorry I interrupted your story for a second, because like I was just with I was just with the Zeros and Kalamazoo group. They did their meet in the middle ride, and like that, it wasn't like good or bad, but somebody brought that up when Brad Hale fucking flew out of Melodrome in Detroit, like, because they brought that up, and like that's all it was really like, oh, that sucked. Like that, yeah, that's what I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I put 2 and 2 together. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Andy Scott Sarah drove me to the drove my van with me in it to the hospital.
I heard you didn't want to go.
Yeah, but I was like barely conscious from the pain.
Yeah.
So they weren't about to listen to me, and
yeah.
I wish someone would have gotten that asshole's insurance information. No one thought to do that. But I can't say I blame them for not thinking of that, but that would have helped because I've been ducking those calls for years.
Yeah, Andy is fucking such a nice guy. Yeah, all those guys really, made me feel at home that weekend. So what is your favorite build you've done for mopeds? You've been around long enough, you've put bikes together. Like, what's your bike that you think about, like, fuck, I love that bike, and did you ever sell it?
I've done a lot of those. You know, the one I wrecked at that race, I really liked a lot, and I only got a chance to ride it for a few months. It was a pintle frame. I put like a Moby long seat on it, and it had a Kreidler tank on it.
Yeah.
With like those were like the Ninja big boy Scepter tanks. Like, those things hold like about 2 gallons. You know, and I painted it Ford blue because it's Pinot, so why not paint it Ford blue?
Exactly.
Yeah, it was a great bike. It was a lot of fun. Pretty simple build, nothing too crazy, but like, you know, I rode it at Salute Your Ports, and I was like a traffic spotter during that rally with that bike, and you know, I at least got a good rally or 2 or 3 in with it before I wrecked the hell out of it. One thing I remember clearly was like the people who came over to me after I came off that bike, they thought I was dead. They thought I was fucking dead. They came over, and I'm just like, and I'm like rolling around writhing in pain. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what the hell? And I was like laying there, and I'm like, oh, what's going on with my bike? And I hear Scott, and he's like, let's not worry about that right now, buddy. And this other guy, Adam, was there. He was like, "Damn, dude, you can take a hit. Are you kidding me?
You can take a hit." That's too funny.
That could have went a lot worse. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely could have.
Yeah.
I think we've all had those instances in mopeds if you've ridden enough miles. What's a lot like? What's the long? You already said longest. You talked about your favorite bike. Like, what's it like being a no today? Are you guys doing group rides, or is it just kind of on pause right now because of the Rona?
I mean, me personally, I have not been nearly as active with mopeds this year as I would like to be. I mean, it's mostly because I've been busy with like other projects I've had. A lot of them with like 4-wheel vehicles and like trying to finish my garage project I started last year. I still have to like finish parts of that. So it's just the last year has been kind of a bummer because like the biggest thing about mopeds is like the social aspect, and with like being next to gone, because like most, so many people are like, oh, I don't want to go if not everyone's vaccinated or this, that, or the other thing. Didn't do hardly anything with it last year. We had a few local rides last year. We did, and there's some other locals who aren't no-nos, but like, friends of ours that have been hosting rides again this year, but I haven't got a chance to get out to any of them as yet this year. Like, I've been out riding a few times, but if it gives you an idea how much I've rode this year, the gas in my Hobbit is so old that now every time I go to ride it, it clogs the idle jet.
Oh, no. Sounds like you get out riding a little bit, my guy. Yeah. But that's me. I just like, it feels weird. Like, Tuesdays are weird for me because I just love to ride, and like I don't ride on Tuesdays because I'm usually doing some stuff after work, and then I gotta do this. So like I feel weird all day Wednesday. Like, and there's that, everybody knows that one tree, at least in the north, that turns before the other trees. And like I saw that one tree on my ride home today starting to get lighter. I'm like, oh no, fall's coming. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Like, what things do you got planned for the rest of the year for mopeds? Or are you just kind of staying stagnant right now until things kind of get back to normal-ish?
No, I mean, like, I'm not personally letting any of the Corona stuff hold me back at this point. I mean, like, I got my shots and everything. That's not what worries me. It's just, I've just still got so much else going on that I just haven't, you get busy with work, and then at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I don't want to have to like load my bike and go here, after work. The motivation hasn't been there because I've already been like a year without it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can happen to the best of us. I can't lie. Like I said, I say I like to ride all the time, but there's times where I struggle. Like I might not touch a bike for a week or two, but then like I get going crazy. Like that 2-wheel therapy always helps. That's why I can, if I can encourage you for anything, Mr. Brad, and you know that without me saying that at all. Do you got any big plans for 2022? Do you talked about the no-nos possibly holding a rally?
Yeah, we've talked shit about it amongst ourselves, and the sooner we start planning it, the better, because we would like it to be a big deal. Like the place that we usually hold the rally, apparently they dug out like a small dirt bike track that was made for like kid dirt bikes.
Mm-hmm.
So that has potential to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Especially get a few dirt peds or even just regular mopeds on there. That'd be rad as hell.
Oh yeah, people with the Magnum X's, they'll flip their shit for that.
Dude, I want to.
What's supposed to do with this thing?
I am half-heartedly looking for a cheap TX50. So if you know of any, we'll talk. I gotta do some business. What was that?
Is that the Mini Tom?
Yeah. I got on one in Richmond this summer, and like I kind of half-assed fell in love with it. Justin from the Rebel Rousers has one. I'm just like, God damn. And like Garrett from the Casserolers up here, I reinforced his frame and extended his swing arm and all that stuff for him a couple years ago. And it was some of the worst welding I'd done in years, but they're still, holding up. I always get nervous doing side projects for other people. I trust my stuff for me, but like I always remember that whole thing, like you could kill them if you do this wrong, Jim. So like that's always that always makes me nervous. Let me do some of my business here. If you want to look us up on the Instagram, we are here at Second Chance Pod. If you Facebook and Second Chance, a Moped Podcast, we're a group and page and all that stuff. If you have any suggestion for shows, people, all that good stuff, Second Chance Moped at gmail.com. Second Chance Moped at gmail.com. I always forget to do that, Brad. So like we'll just throw that in here right now. Is there anything you'd like to, as we kind of wrap up a little bit, is there any Instagrams or anything like that you would like to direct people?
Well, we do have the No-Nos Facebook group. It's NST/NFG. That's our public page. But I'll be honest, it's mostly raccoon memes. But yeah, our Instagram for the Moped Gang is No Moped Crew. And my personal one is Slow Motion for All, and it's a number 4 and 3 L's at the end.
Yeah. Yours is a really awesome follow. You have a style from 1974 that I absolutely fucking love. I love those cabinets. People in the podcast land can't see this, but like the cabinets Brad has in his workshop there are fucking rad as hell. And we'll kind of dive away from the moped side a little bit. You talk about different bands you've been in. What like music do you play as Brad slowly takes a swing of beer?
Well, to put it into perspective, my Instagram handle is a Modest Mouse reference.
Okay.
To the song called City.
What was that? You broke up for a second.
Oh, it's a reference to a Modest Mouse song called A Different City.
Okay.
And that's, the stuff I play has a big lean towards like old Modest Mouse and like early late 90s emo and post-hardcore stuff, kind of like that. But it's all kind of got like, I don't know, kind of got like a classic rock kind of feel. But my band's called Shindig Machine. We played at the last No-Nos rally.
Right on.
And everyone enjoyed it a lot. But, we've got our album streaming on Spotify and Apple Music and whatever streaming service you got. So
yeah. Do you want to say your band's name again for the audience in case I didn't catch it the first time?
Oh, yeah. We're called Shindig Machine.
Right on, dude. That's fucking rad name. Hopefully you guys get together and play a few moped events for us. I can't thank you enough for coming on and being patient with me as we had a few technical difficulties early on, and still coming on. I might be up your way Labor Day weekend, so definitely I'll have to get a hold of you. You, Brad, because you've been on Second Chance Moped Podcast. Next year, if there's a rally in Minnesota or anytime you want to get away, you always have a place to stay at my house. Come on up. We'll fucking rip hobbits all over St. Paul. Hands down, the best city to ride mopeds in the Midwest. I will throw that gauntlet down there because they have some of the smoothest roads. And like I loved riding in the Irish Hills of Michigan. Absolutely beautiful, but absolutely like minimum maintenance style blacktop roads. Like those things were just they're a little rough. They were a little rough, but fun as hell. But,
yeah, I've been to Minnesota before, and they do take much better care of their roads than Michigan does.
Yeah, but it's beautiful up in Michigan.
Our roads are shit here, bud.
Get those EBR hydros, you'll be fine. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. We'll chit chat for half a second afterwards, but don't forget, Brad, mopeds are dumb.
They most certainly are.
All right, my guy. Talk to you.